Mpenzi wewe ni nguzo yangu, usiondoke. Maisha yatayumba yumba kama upepo wa bahari. Pendo lako
Dan, Chizi Aceda, thank you very much for coming and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Explain to me how Dan Aceda became Chizi.
Well, that name was actually given to me by one of my classmates back in high school, and he gave it to me because I pranked the teacher. There's a chemical experiment in high school where you put lithium in water, and you're supposed to see effervescence and heat. Nice chemical experiment, 844 system, and it gets worse if you put in acid. So when the teacher stepped out to go and get more materials for the experiment, I went to the front of the class and I switched the labels on the vials. So instead of HCl, I switched it with water. So when the teacher came in, he was supposed to put it in water, but then he put it in the HCl. So then there was a small explosion.
Right.
A small situation.
And because, so I'm talking to someone who was a naughty boy.
No, I wouldn't say that. I was never caught.
You were never caught?
Yeah, this is off the record.
This is off the record. Chizi, we've just seen a clip, one and only, love songs. 1 million have been written, doubtless 1 million more. What's the inspiration for that particular one?
Well, for this one was special to me because it was a tribute to my dear wife. It's just a bit of a statement of how everything worked in our own lives, and think the way stuff should run, in a perfect world, the way stuff should run. The story of two people who fight through all types of things to eventually then start a life together. And that's a story in the video, that's a story in the song.
Right, so, okay, without being too personal, what are the linkages with your own life? Are you sort of saying you suffered, you crawled through mountains in order to get...
No, I guess it's just the situation about being a 21st century African and all these influences and things, and the culture is moving pretty fast.
Right.
And so if you're trying to do some type of relationship,
right,
or, especially one that you're hoping will lead to marriage and, proverbial soulmate, right, it's a minefield. It's more complicated now. That was our experience. It was very, very complicated.
Right. Was this sort of complicated by the fact that your marriage was inter-ethnic, inter-tribal, inter-community?
Well, to some extent, yes. If you're doing an inter-tribal marriage or relationship, then yeah, you will have some bit of a pressure. I have to concede that. Yeah. With our two families, though complicated, it was surprisingly very smooth.
Right.
And very good. Just culturally. I mean, for instance, there's not a lot of people who now believe that marriage works or that.
Right. So it's an institution that's in the decline.
It's an institution that's under attack, I think. There's a lot of people trying to break it down. It's got its problems. I don't think it's a perfect system. Right. But then it is under attack. And so if you're then trying to do this, right, you're going to get through...
So maybe an unfair, if we're having these statistics about young women at university, if they do get a degree, I think then they decide not to get married. But you're for the institution. Why are you for? Just by tradition, because it represents a challenge, or because it's, for you,
Well, I'd like to look at it this way. First of all, yes, I was brought up a certain way, and I've got my culture and my family values, and I will live those. But even for a neutral, if you're trying to say that you're going to do a relationship with somebody, and you're going to take this as serious as you want them to take you as seriously as you take them. Right. Then you're going to need some type of legal premise to do this. Right. And marriage is your best option. Right. If you're not serious and you don't want, you're not gonna take her as seriously as she takes you, or vice versa. Right. Then you don't have to. But just for neutral, you want to have somebody who's got your back no matter what, legally. Yes. And this is it. This is the way to get it done. And just in the conversation, the way it's going on all over the world, this conversation is being had. If somebody is in a state where they're incapacitated,
Right.
Who then makes a decision for them?
Right.
And if you're in a relationship with somebody for dog years, 10, 15 years,
Yes.
you're not married, you can't make the decision.
Right.
So,
Right. So, okay. Fine. I'm asking you whether this, for those of you who are not familiar with your music and what you do, is love songs is all you do?
no. Love songs is not all we do. But it's a big part of it, mainly because the love songs get heavy rotation. When you do...
So what kind of songs do you do besides?
Well, you do...
Social commentary?
Yeah, also done social commentary, social justice,
Right.
a lot of music, music for activism.
Right.
A lot of that has been done, yes. Experiences, those songs will...
I'm interested in the word activism. Activism for what?
Well, activism...
Save the environment, save the trees, save the water. What are you saving?
Well, I haven't really done music for the environment yet, but there's a whole host of issues that I've had a chance to look at in my
Because
music.
you believe in them, or because you're writing to order? Somebody's saying, write me a song about...
Well, the first two are because I believed in them. And then eventually you get all types of people who then come to you and say, listen, we want to put this message out. And they make the case to you, and if you agree with the case, then you write the song. I mean, I've written my own personal songs. For me, things that are close to my heart, you know, social justice, just the idea that everybody is born equal and should be treated equal, and the idea of equity in a society. Those are close to my heart, and those are things that I've written about under no duress.
Right.
But there are people who've come to us and said, we want you to write a song about a product, a song about an idea. And then we have to weigh and see whether I agree with the idea or not. Or
The mythology has it, Chizi, that you studied architecture. You did 6 years at the university, you qualified, you graduated, you got your degree. Is the understanding that you were torn between two existences? One can't pay enough for you to survive on, therefore you pursue the other. What's your explanation for that?
It's interesting. I think I'm a complicated person. That would be my first reaction. For me, studying architecture and being a musician was never very far removed. They're very much the same thing. The methods were the same. In architecture, we start with a brief. You understand what the client wants to do, and then you understand the problem, for instance, the weather, the site, and all these things. Then you go into concept, what you're trying to express. Then you go develop that into a design, and eventually you build it. It's the same thing in music. You've got a situation which you see as an artist, the proverbial mirror of the society, problem statement, you look at it, you have a concept, you develop the concept, you go and record it, and the music comes out. So in terms of method, it's all the same. Architects and music, any architect out there in the world has at least 100 albums stashed in his house. So we are one and the same. So it was a very
So you're
difficult
you're actively pursuing both at the same time, even as we speak. You are an architect who is a musician. Because the next question is going to be, how do you manage to marry the two and still be married to the person you've recently been married to?
Oh yes, it is a delicate balance.
Music is an evening activity, 8 to 5 job is a daytime activity, and there are only 24 hours in a day, as I remember it.
Yes, actually it's the other way around now. Music is now the first 8 hours of the day, and then architecture is the next 8 hours. But it's still, I think what has helped me now, when I was in universities, I guess it was easier to balance because you're in university, you're
young, no responsibilities.
Yeah, and in any case, your schedule is somewhat already, it's a given. You've got class in the morning, you've got this, so everything else will slot in the gaps. When I come out of the university, then it was a little more complicated because I had to craft it. But it wasn't that difficult. And now, because I've shifted more into research in architecture and urban design, it means I have a little bit of a more flexible time, and then my music has taken off more and more, so that's taken priority. So that's the 8 to 5 job, and then we're doing research for architecture later.
And I do believe that you're also a man of the theatre. So you are a complicated person.
Yes.
So very recently, were you not to be seen playing opposite Mombi Kaigwa in some play?
In Wit, yes.
In Wit.
Yes, I had the great blessing of doing a little bit of theatre in my short time. Mostly musical,
Yes.
which I had the chance to play with as it evolved. Because it began as Luanda, a ghetto story. I was in that, written by Eric Wainaina, and then that developed from 2006 to 2009 when it became More Fire.
Right.
And you were directing that. And so
I remember. And we
Yes.
had great fun and went all the way to the US.
Yes, did the US tour and came back.
Right.
And after that, I've been to auditions to do parts in movies,
Right.
with Stevie Price and those guys. Not done a movie yet, but then now this year we were in the play Wit with Mombi Kaigwa.
Right.
It was done, of course, with as part of the memorial for Wangari Maathai,
Right.
and as an awareness campaign for ovarian cancer.
Right.